Anyway, it means that if you decide to be a reviewer, plot will find you.
Alright. Gentlemen, behold.
In the city, time for one more vodka and wine to help paralyze that tiny little
Yes, ladies and menfolk, I'm fulfilling a promise I've been making for a while now. We are going to look back at one of, if not the most groundbreaking first-person shooters of all time. But before I dive into the game itself, I'd like to try and establish what was going on in the game scene when Valve Software made their debut. Shooters were dominating the PC by the mid-90s, thanks to the amazing success of Doom and Quake by id Software. Graphics at the time were being pushed to their limits by the Unreal Engine, and Quake 2 started us down the road to more user-made content and a serious investment in online multiplayer. What was lacking was story. Most shooters had few to no memorable characters, and while there was usually a flimsy setup for the player to go on their virtual rampage like demons from hell have taken over Mars, kill them all, they weren't really strong in the actual storytelling department. Now, I'm not saying they were all like that, or that Half-Life was completely different, but it did bring a lot of new ideas to the genre, and gave the game a purpose besides being a series of rooms with monsters to kill. Our story begins as a tramcar makes its way through a large underground complex, the Black Mesa Research Facility. Our main character is Dr. Gordon Freeman, theoretical physicist and professional mute. Not really someone you'd expect a lot of violent gunplay from. In fact, that's the first thing you notice about the game. You aren't immediately armed and shooting people. Gordon is just making his way to work, bumping into coworkers, reminding him he's late for an important experiment.
Weren't you supposed to be in the test chamber half an hour ago?
Anyway, Freeman makes it to work, finally, and...
Get away from the shut it down. Shut down. It's not shutting down. It's not.
Yep, it's been about 10 minutes since the game started. Something bad was due to happen. Actually, let's think about this for a second. From starting a new game, it takes about 15 minutes before Gordon gets his hands on a weapon, the series' signature crowbar. Because when all else fails, crowbar. In every other shooter before this, you start off with a gun, or at least your bare fists. What's happening here is the game is acclimating you to a normal game world first, introducing you to helpful NPCs and your environment before letting the real action start. Again, this is something you didn't see in first-person shooters before this. Normally, if a gamer started a game with a weapon, they'd be shooting at their coworkers and the plot would never get off the ground. Anyway, in the aftermath of the experiment gone wrong, the player has to navigate Gordon through the ruined facility to get topside, report the accident, and hopefully get a rescue team down there. Unfortunately, whatever went wrong is causing aliens to invade the facility. So, shoving mysterious crystals into giant lasers causes dimensional rifts. Science! When Gordon finally reaches the surface, he makes a shocking discovery. The military has arrived not to rescue them, but to kill everyone. I really doubt a game could get away with a plot twist like this today. And with our post-9/11 Modern Warfare Fox News jingoism, the idea of a game where the United States military would wholesale slaughter unarmed civilians as part of a massive government cover-up would get your game banned, censored, and publicly demonized before you could say, "Oorah." So yeah, when the soldiers start gunning everything down, it's pretty clear Gordon and the rest of the science team are on their own. Gordon retreats into the bowels of the facility, running and gunning both alien interlopers and trigger-happy Marines. The military seems to take Gordon's self-defense rather personally, sending Black Ops assassins after him, setting up ambushes and mines in his path, and after seeing where they managed to capture him, they chuck him in a trash compactor. Eventually we learn of the Lambda Complex, a section of the facility where the science team is still trying to stop the alien invasion, and Gordon fights his way there in hopes of an escape from this disaster. I guess I am exaggerating the plot somewhat. It's basically bad thing happens, aliens and guys with guns try to kill you, save the world, the end. Of course, I could describe a lot of games, but what made Half-Life different was the execution. For a start, the game had a real sense of immersion by never taking the player out of the game world. There are no cutscenes or pre-rendered cinematics, so everything you see is what's happening around you. Valve used scripted sequences, scenes written into the actual game engine with actors and objects acting in certain ways when the player reaches a certain area. By not taking the player out of the game for these scenes, it feels more like you're actually there and interacting with the game world. Sure, there are a couple of scenes where you basically just stand there and listen to an NPC tell you the next plot point, but overall it works. And while I'm on the subject of immersion, allow me to add that I love the tutorial level for this game. The basic idea behind a tutorial for a game is that not everyone who buys it is going to be familiar with how to play it, so it's a good idea to teach them the basics before the game actually gets difficult. The Hazard Course level for Half-Life is pretty basic, teaching players how to interact with the environment, use or destroy objects, and general shooter mechanics, but it's the presentation that sells it. An instructional course designed to introduce Black Mesa employees in the use of the Hazardous Environment suit, which Gordon dons at the start of his workday in Half-Life, and serves as his magic power armor. It doesn't break the fourth wall and stays in the context of the game world, which makes it feel like a real part of the game and not a boring instructional class. Plus, it's a separate, self-contained level, so when you replay the game, you're not forced to repeat the tutorial, something that's always bothered me about other games. One thing you learn from the tutorial is the importance of the non-hostile, non-player characters, the scientists and the security guards. This was another big first for immersion in shooters. Now there were characters in the game that could actually help you. Scientists give an emergency shot of health if you're low, and you'll often need to find them and keep them safe in order to unlock certain doors. The security guards, nicknamed Barneys after Barney Fife, can open certain doors too, but they also shoot and help out in combat, even if they don't usually last long. I can't think of any shooter before Half-Life that encouraged you to keep NPCs alive like this, and penalized you for killing them. Most of the time, the other important characters never appear in-game, can't be killed, or don't actually do anything. Besides the NPCs and hostile Marines, there's another character you encounter that is stuck with the game mythos and adds a level of X-Files-like intrigue, the G-Man. This character is glimpsed briefly during your opening tram ride to work, but when you arrive at Sector C he's already there, apparently having an argument with another scientist. He then proceeds to appear now and then during your journey, usually from somewhere you can't reach just yet, and he's gone by the time you get there. You're never quite sure if he's just there observing you or guiding you, blocking off certain paths and making sure you follow the safest route, never really interacting with you until the very end.
Gordon Freeman in the flesh.
But of course with the good must come the bad, and time has left Half-Life with a lot of faults. The heavily modified Quake 2 engine hasn't aged well. Textures look incredibly blurry and blocky as the screen resolution increases. The aliens are creative in design and function, especially the iconic headcrabs and zombies, but the human characters are blocky. Did you ever notice that they can't move their fingers and they just punch keypads with their fists? Plus the scientists all share the same body type, just different heads, which looks creepy if you look at them for too long. And while the game's music is really good, most of the sound effects and dialogue sound really compressed and unpleasant to listen to now. That's not to say the voice actors are bad. Michael Shapiro is great as the G-Man and the security guards, and Harry S. Robbins worked overtime to provide the voices for the majority of the science team. Probably my biggest gripe looking back on the game is how many sections feel like needless padding. Chapters like Blast Pit and Power Up, where you have to destroy a giant monster to progress the game, are nice set pieces, but they don't feel like they contribute to the overall story. The On a Rail chapter finally returns to the story with Gordon trying to launch a satellite to help the science team close the alien rift, but it's an awkward vehicle on rails section that wears out its welcome rather quickly. And I wouldn't have cared at all if they had cut the whole residue processing chapter. And speaking of padding, I hope you enjoy crawling around in air ducts because this game has a lot of that. And now what you all came here to see, hot men invent action. And if I have to talk about the bad levels, I have to talk about Zen. No, not that. The one with the X. Because it was the 90s, everything had to have an X in it. These are probably the most reviled levels in gaming history to old-school shooter fans. After Gordon finally escapes the military and infiltrates the Lambda complex, he meets up with a few survivors who tell him the aliens are coming from another dimension through a rift created by the experiment in Gordon's lab, and some kind of powerful psychic on the other side is keeping the rift open.
I hate to say this, Gordon, but you must kill it if you can.
Yeah, you'd better kill it.
Gentlemen, we have ourselves a final boss. Now this is where the level designers got creative by realizing a completely alien world, but most players didn't react to it kindly. Traversing Zen requires a lot of jumping puzzles using your new long jump module. Remember all the complaints I had about platforming from a first-person perspective in Mirror's Edge? Zen is kind of like that, but with less forgiving physics. That's not to say the game doesn't have a number of good points and spectacles, but part of me worries that it's nostalgia that makes me still enjoy the game. The graphics were good, but now they look dated. The AI was clever for its time, with AI enemies routinely taking cover instead of blindly charging at you, and the Marines and aliens would fight each other before attacking you, but now they just don't seem as bright. Plus, the AI pathfinding for friendly NPCs can be really dodgy. I guess in the end it's a flawed game that still has some charm but has been surpassed by its successors. If first-person shooters were music players, Half-Life would be the original iPod. There were others before it, but it shifted the paradigm and all that came after it tried to copy it. And like the original iPod, it's not as impressive and rather quaint by today's standards. My recommendation is to pick it up along with other old titles like Quake 2 and Unreal, which I may review in the future, if you're a dedicated action gamer who wants to see how the genre has evolved. Not to mention, it's sometimes refreshing to go back to older action games where the hero doesn't have regenerating health and can carry 10 or more weapons at once. Of course, that's only Half-Life itself, and only some of what it did. But it's a new year, and I've got a lot of other games I want to review for you, so we'll have to get back to Half-Life later. Okay, that was weird. Mr. Strife. Who the hell are you supposed to be? The G-Man's cousin? I am the Z-Man. The G-Man is my uncle. He got me this position. So what, does your letter indicate hierarchy? I am somewhat new to this position. I am waiting for my first paycheck so that I may buy a briefcase. Wow, that is positively fascinating. Now get out. I am here with a proposition for you. What part of get out did you not understand? Look, I don't care what CinWicked says. I don't do plot. Leave and take whatever stupid story arc or whatever you have with you. My employers warned me that you might be resistant to our offer, so I decided to bring some collateral. Where did you find this? That is none of your concern. As long as you accept our offer, no one else will know of those documents. Fine, what do you want? It is a simple proposition. My employers feel you have not properly explored the Half-Life universe with this one review. They wish to see that rectified. Well, I was planning on doing more eventually, but I've got other stuff I want to review. I've got a script for Far Cry 2, I want to do Modern Warfare and Max Payne. Now. Oh, come on, I still need to replay the game so I can get footage and write scripts and everything. Oh, I assure you we will have all the time you require, free of any distractions. Why do I get the feeling that's a bad thing? My employers have authorized me to relocate you, so that you cannot escape your obligations. Oh, this doesn't look good. This won't hurt, will it? Oh god. Oh god, it does. It hurts. It's pure hurt. Why would you make this?
We are Prodigy.
Were you in weapons research too? I built the glue-on gun, but I just can't bring myself to use it on a living creature. You don't look as if you have any trouble killing things.